Have you made the coffee yet? Man, it's always fun. I usually ask these rather pointed questions at the beginning because I like to dig down on the individual and kind of truly start to understand them at the beginning of the conversation, which is, that makes sense. But it's a little bit more to it than that, right? When I talk to individuals, and typically with my podcast, it's political in nature, right? I have some political individuals come on and we'll talk about them as a character within politics. And what I've come to find, Bryce, is there's individuals who involve themselves in politics because they're involved with politics. But there's individuals who involve themselves in politics because they're service-oriented individuals. And there's things that you can pick up on with that, right? If you talk to an individual and they are just in a position to be in a position, right? I'm not saying that that's a bad thing necessarily, but it's drastically different than the individual who orients themselves towards service. And that's on the surface level, your work, right? Your fireman, both your wife being in a service-oriented industry as well. But for that matter, it's foundational. Something you said while you were talking about the foundation of your faith is also service-oriented. Now, that's really important. I want to expound upon that, right? It doesn't just come out of nowhere. There is this innate feature of wanting to be service-oriented, I think, with service-oriented individuals. I want to kind of go back to your childhood. I'm like a therapist, man. I want to go back to your childhood. Let's talk about these things. Where do you think this want to serve came from? When you think about it, let's think about like what maybe your dad instilled in you, or maybe your mom instilled in you. Where did this come from, man?
That's a great question. I don't know that I have the perfect answer to it, because like when you visit a therapist, most of the questions they ask you, you don't get, you don't have an answer for the first time. I don't know. I think it came from family. My dad definitely instilled in us a strong Protestant work ethic. I like to joke. I had no idea what Saturday morning cartoons were until I went to college. My first Saturday at college, they were like, "Hey, we're gonna go down and watch Saturday morning cartoons at the cafeteria. You want to go?" I was like, "What are Saturday morning cartoons?" Anyway, so I grew up on a beef ranch in Florida. And so I think, having that work ethic is important. Knowing that work is valuable, that work is it's a responsibility. It's an outpouring of the gifts and abilities that you've been given, as well as the trade that you've learned and you've acquired in the vocation and the direction that the Lord has given you to work. So I think that's part of it. And then too, I think for me, really the seminal moment. So I grew up in Florida, in Plant City, halfway between Tampa and Orlando. Strawberries, cows, that was about it growing up. But then, like I said, I worked for that international nonprofit youth ministry out of upstate New York. And it's a Bible college camping ministry. And they reach youth through three ways: through Bible Institutes, through camps, and through partnerships with their local churches. And I went to the Bible Institute in Florida. That's one of their schools. It was a phenomenal experience. It was a great gap year program. And then I got asked to be on a leadership development team that they had. And it was basically 12 dudes that traveled in a van over for a year. And I did not sing. I was the tech guy. But we would sing and promote the college and the camps and that type of stuff in Christian schools and churches all over the eastern United States. And then I got asked to lead a new team that was doing basically the same thing for 2 years. So over the course of those 3 years, we traveled like 300,000 miles. I probably stayed in 600 different homes. As far north as Maine, far south as Florida, as far east as Mississippi. And just listening to people talk about what was on their hearts, what was going on in their lives, and the things that they were struggling with and things that they were working through. I realized that across the U.S., there's common threads and common themes. We just express those pains and those difficulties slightly different based off our geographic location. But I think that's really where I got my heart for people and my desire to help people because you see individuals that are trying to do the right thing, they're putting their shoulder to the grindstone and their nose to the wheel, and they're just not getting ahead. And for a variety of reasons, it could be because the job that they're working it just got outsourced to Canada or to Mexico or to China. Or their kid that was doing well in school is now struggling in school because they're disconnected from their teachers and they're having a learning disability. It's just I think there's a lot of things that plague the American individual that are outside of his or her control. And I don't think, by no means does the government need to come in and fix those things. But I do think the government can take some of the weight off of their shoulders, expanding child tax credits, making college tuition tax deductible, things like that are just, to me, are no-brainers that increase limited government, they kind of scale back the scope of the Fed, but also, give those individuals some room to breathe.